Hello, I'm Toycat, welcome back to the second channel video. So a couple of weeks ago, we started to see something quite unprecedented happen in the world because countries like Tajikistan started prohibiting air travel for nationalities of countries including the UK, the EU, Asia, India, and indeed the US. This was a huge move we started to see from countries like that were widely seen as unnecessary, widely seen as not helpful, and since then have even been reversed. It was kind of a weird situation we were in a couple of weeks ago, but then something huge happened literally overnight last night because the US doubled down and jumped aboard this train. The world's largest economy, third largest country by population and indeed size, one of the world's largest countries by pretty much any measure you can imagine, has banned travel from Europe for 30 days. You might be thinking, Europe, that's a broad thing. It's Europe with the exception being like the UK and anything outside the Schengen area, but this is an absolutely huge change to a travel policy. This is unprecedented stuff. We are talking about something that has never happened. Just every single, again, Schengen area country, there is 26 of them roughly, every single one of these countries is no longer able to travel directly to the United States, and even travel via the UK is kind of vague. Again, right now, the situation is happening at midnight, so we're going to learn a lot more, but basically there is a huge ban, unlike any we've ever seen in history, and this is something that I wanted to talk about in today's video, because the current disease situation, that you can't say the name off on YouTube without being demonetized for some reason, but the current disease situation has been causing a lot of craziness, which actually goes further than this. Again, banning travel from Europe for 30 days seems fairly small on the surface, but in my opinion it's huge. We're talking about a huge chunk of the world population, the two world's largest trading blocks cutting each other off at the source, but it goes even more than this, because even though it's not surprising to learn that Iran Air had suspend their flights, which is supposedly not related to it according to themselves, they're like, it's actually because of regulations, and really that's why we're stopping flights there, even though Iran also has its current issue. It's not just the fact that the places like Kuwait are literally closing their airport, and Kuwait closing their airport might not seem too big on the surface, but you got to bear in mind, Kuwait City airport is the only airport found in the country of Kuwait. It's a pretty small country, that's why all of its history is a thing. But when they close their major airport down, with the exception being for Kuwaiti nationals to get home and any spouse members or whatever, this means they're effectively closing their country besides the land borders. And when you're a country as small as Kuwait, with only borders to Saudi Arabia and Iraq, basically Kuwait is mostly, again, with an asterisk, mostly closing down their border, right? This is huge. They are shutting down a huge major piece of industry, and things only get crazier than that because India has gone a step further than that and has suspended pretty much every non-diplomatic and non-official visa. If you would like to go to India in the next month, you cannot do so. If you are an Indian national living in India, you can return home. If you're an international, even if you're overseas, you cannot do that either. The damage this is going to do to the tourism, the damage this is going to do to aviation, think about flying into a country where most people cannot access it, the damage this is going to do to the whole, again, any industry that relies on foreign people to get into a country is going to be huge. And again, I know what you're thinking, like, wait, really, Toycat, you're going to focus on the damage? No, this is the big thing, right? We are talking about disease, which is, growing, to some extent every single day. You can see there's 127,000 cases at present. We're talking about a disease which is, of course, kind of big and which does have a, death rate in the 3 to 4% area. That's a big thing by itself too. But when you're thinking about the damage to the global economy that is happening when countries like, Kuwait shut down, Kuwait and India are full on shut down, when countries like Argentina or Israel basically require you to quarantine for 14 days, making it impossible effectively to visit, because most people aren't going for 14 days, and most of those people don't want to be inside a house, which, by the way, has to be a house, not a hotel, in the case of Israel. When there are all these sorts of situations, we are seeing measures that haven't been seen before, and which sound like they're coming straight out of a video game. We are seeing the world shut down in a way that we haven't quite before, and this video is here to kind of just say, like, hey, this is crazy. This is literally, almost never seen before stuff. We're talking about an era of things that we haven't seen this happen before. Is this going to happen more? Is this a one-time thing? Is this the start of the apocalypse? I would say all those things are a bit of a stretch. So obviously, we have a bit of a niche situation right now. We have a bit of a situation, that is obviously changing and developing all over the world. And we have a situation where every country is trying their very hardest to avoid becoming, places like, Italy, which didn't have, wasn't the initial harbinger of the case, but now has the highest number of cases per, million population. The highest per capita, at least of any major country, is found in Italy, not because they had it there, but because it spread there quickly. A lot of countries are jumping on the holy, Jesus, we need to avoid becoming Italy, and also need to avoid getting people from there. Because one of the interesting things about this ban, which, by the way, seems super unuseful on the surface, because if you can travel via the UK anyway, then what's the point in that? Basically, it's a ban on the Schengen area because Italy doesn't really have its own border. Again, the EU is a one borderless area. We've gone over the Schengen area a billion times on this channel, but it's basically just a ban saying, hey, there are a lot of countries with a lot of issues right now, especially when we're talking per capita. Again, even though it doesn't seem like it's such a big deal compared to 12,000 cases, if you think about Sweden's size of their population compared to the UK, and the fact that they have more cases, overall, despite having over a 10 times smaller population, or over 6 times smaller population, that's pretty concerning. It's really concerning to see countries like Denmark. It's concerning to see countries, even when you see like the Norways of the world, etc. It is concerning to see these countries being on really, high levels. Again, Norway is literally 10 times smaller population-wise than the UK, and, is like literally almost, it's like 50-ish times smaller than Japan's population, or about 25-ish. But basically, the huge, scale of the problem found in the Schengen area is actually kind of unmatched anywhere else in the world. Even though there are more absolute cases in China, which are slowly shrinking in terms of like the number of new ones, even though there is more absolute cases in China, the number of cases like per capita is pretty darn damning. Here is a map from the WHO themselves, and you can see how, like, yeah, this has become somehow, again, how you want to say that is kind of down to you. This has somehow become a Europe issue, and the easiest explanation for that is because Europe is a hotbed for tourism. The continent in the world with the most interest from tourists, the country in the world with the most tourists, period, actually is, obviously Europe. And, the EU in particular with its borderless zones seems to be at huge risk from that. Again, just like seeing the size of these problems over and over again in all the countries affected and bordering, etc., it's a scary thing to do. And it can be the easiest instinct to be like, let's close borders of that place having the big problem. And that is just something I want to kind of mention as like a fascinating little statistic. You can see why countries, do see themselves and do make the decision they are when you see the map kind of like this. Because again, it's really hard to properly talk about this in terms of data points. When we're talking about something which has killed 4,000 people, the easy response is like, holy Jesus, imagine if it gets 10 times bigger, or 100 times bigger, or 1,000,000 times bigger. I mean, not that it literally can, but actually, wait, 124 billion? It's possible. You just have to infect everyone on Earth a bunch of times. This seems like it is like the start of the end of the world. If you are only on Twitter, if you're only on social media, it seems as though the world is truly ending right here. But I think the thing you got to bear in mind is the much bigger deal is there are lots of localized things having more effects than others. I mean, things like cinemas aren't affected by the public gathering ban. They can just prevent people, because a lot of countries are saying no more than 100 people in one place. Have a 99, but stuff like a cinema, for instance, 99 people. But the tourism industries, on which many countries, I mean, particularly in Europe, but all around the world, many local economies rely on tourism. They are being decimated. The decrease in employment with airlines as well are linked to a lot of people, because we know for a fact that when you increase the unemployment rate, even by small amounts, you're slowly increasing the death rate, by associated things without the correct support to go alongside it. The level of impact this has as a thing by itself is relatively small. Again, what we can say, near certainty, is that if everyone who was scared about catching this current disease right here, which I shall not name, if everyone's scared about catching the current disease, then the amount of precautions people take would decrease the other illnesses by more deaths than have still been caused as a result of this. In fact, in Japan, a physician has recently come out, and a few of them actually, I was reading this, but a lot of them have come out and confirmed, actually, more lives have been saved because of people avoiding the flu, because the flu and COVID have pretty much the same, transmission methods and the same prevention methods. Because Japan jumped on that train really early, they used to be, the problem with the country of a lot of problem cases, but now they're down there at 600, while Germany is having a huge outbreak, while Spain, France, Italy are all having their own major outbreaks, even Switzerland at 652, Norway at a huge per capita amount. Basically, there is a huge outbreak happening specifically in Europe, and the only thing you can really tie it down to is the flow of people, both between all of the countries within it, and also to and from the world. Again, you can kind of, it's kind of interesting actually, if you look at this map, with the exception of China, which of course is on there because it started there in the Hubei province. But if we take away like China as an example, you can see how like this list right here corresponds pretty well with the list of places that tourists visit as a a thing. And I don't know why I find that to be such a fascinating little correlation, but yeah, the flow of people is actually basically matching the flow of this thing right here. Is the world going to end? I mean, probably not. Like, if you see it, like, when you see, like, the number just rise, like, wasn't that, like, you know, only a few hundred people just a couple of months ago? Yeah. Wasn't it, like, in the 5 digits literally a few days ago? Yeah. But if you look in terms of actual cases, you can see how we actually were dropping for a while. We're now about to spike and increase. Who knows? This could be the plague that kills us all. But realistically speaking, I want to use today's video as just a word of calm for anyone out there that, like, lots of unprecedented things are happening, including India, the world's largest country by population, or soon to be, literally halting anyone besides Indians coming in and out, and you know, Kuwait doing the same on a more serious, severe level, because, you know, the lack of flights makes it impossible, even for people who can get in and out, to effectively do so. But yeah, basically, even though all these unprecedented things are happening, even though, you know, you can't visit Tajikistan as much as you want to, you are going to have to quarantine yourself, and it's really tragic because my Tajikistan visit is ruined. The reality is the world is going on. The reality is, if you are under the age of 40, you don't have to worry about yourself. Again, you can worry about perhaps spreading something to your family, because the death rates are very, very low. It is a disease that kills a lot of people very close to the edge already, and that is something that happens with other illnesses. And the other interesting thing about this is just to mention that, like, hey, everything is happening at a crazy increased level. Again, as I understand it, the summer makes things better. As I understand it, these sorts of things, and anything, especially when you talk about, like, stock market events, things that happen on a day-by-day basis are much, 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 much scarier in the moment than they are after the fact. Because, hey, did you know, it's hard to gauge whether this is a small thing or a large thing right now. So it seems like the largest possible thing. I heard a really good thing from a very testing video recently that was like, humans are really bad at working out probabilities beyond 0%, 50%, and 100%. Some people are 50%, you know, 50-50 on this, being like, is this gonna kill us all? Some people are 100, some people are at 0. The truth is, the number is somewhere between like 0 and 10% somewhere as to whether this will be a very big issue, and that is hard to wrap your head around. It's hard to say, like, oh yeah, there's a small chance that a lot of the things you know and love collapse, but the reality is these are just measures, you know, being used to contain this so that this doesn't grow and grow and grow and grow like it has done for the past, you know, week, as we've seen right here. And yeah, again, as things go onwards, you'd expect, even though this number will continue to rise, and that is a human tragedy, you'd expect that things will get better. And I just want to take this video as an opportunity to say, chill. On the internet, you see a lot of people making each other anxious deliberately. Being anxious doesn't help you. You know, wash your hands or whatever actually does help you. Wearing a face mask doesn't help you, just makes you look paranoid. If you are sick, wear a face mask, helps other people. Sneeze into, like, something, you know, sneeze into, I don't know if that's the advice, sneeze into a tissue, I believe you're meant to do. You know, do the basic prevention of, you know, illness, and you know what? You might just be okay. But no, yeah, this video is kind of just here to say, hey, everything looks crazy right now, and honestly, it's a really easy way to make clicks, money, etc. If you want to. But the truth is, everything is going to be okay. Just some different amounts of okay. There might be another major cause of death this year, but it won't be the biggest. No matter how big this goes, even the wildest projections of if this just keeps on going up and up and up at the current rate, bear in mind, which, again, a lot of people just assume it just doubles every 2 weeks. That's not how this works. But even if this keeps on going up at its current rate, just bear in mind, even then, it will not be the biggest cause of death this year. Even then, there are still many more people killing themselves, literally, but also many people, you know, making poor, you know, health decisions. Still going to trump that. Many people getting in car accidents. We're talking about 6 digits of people a year over the world who die in car accidents, and, you know, like, drive safer. There's lots of things you can do to prevent many preventable causes of death, and even though this one is non-causable, invisible, and you could get it anywhere, it's kind of scary. The truth is, right now, your odds are still very, very, very low. We're talking about a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percentage of the world population that has it, and even if you live in one of the crazy, you know, high-density areas, we're still talking about in Italy, where everyone is on lockdown. We're still talking about 12,000 people in a country of 60 million. So, again, these things are going to grow, but it's all going to be good. Actually, just before we enter, just some fun facts. One is, again, I can't resist this right here. One is the fact that, did you know that, you know, even though it doesn't look very high up, San Marino has 69 cases, and first of all, nice, am I right? But 69 cases in San Marino, a country of 30,000 people, last I checked. Actually, let's really quickly confirm that. San Marino population. San Marino's population is 33,000. just in case you want to see that right there. Here you can see San Marino's population. Wait, actually, can you see it? There you go. San Marino's population is in fact 33,000, which is means that 69 cases out of 33,000 people means that 1 in every 500 people there has it, which is that is very high. That is, San Marino is in crisis mode, and we're all focusing on China and Iran and stuff. Anyway, and South Korea, Jesus, these case numbers. But the interesting thing, also, it just doesn't show up on the list because they don't even have a million population. But yeah, basically the thing I want to mention is that, like, hey, if you don't live in San Marino, it's not in crisis mode yet. And if you do live in San Marino, then God help you or whatever. Unless you're under the age of 40, in which case, you know what, you can be all right. Next up here, I just wanted to kind of mention something. It's going to be very controversial, but it's happening in a couple of days. I'm actually heading to Hong Kong. It's travel booked before all of this stuff happened, and everyone's going to say, again, when I make videos, everyone's going to be like, you are a crazy person. Why are you going to China? And first of all, it's not China, it's Hong Kong. Very much a separate region with its own border between China, with China itself. But one, you can see how Hong Kong is actually very, very low down this list. It had an early outbreak, but it's only had like 30 cases in the last month. Second, which means it's actually safer by a significant amount than the UK. Really, this is me going to the, just going to the Winchester and waiting for it all to blow over. I forgot the name of that pub. So I'm just going to the pub, waiting for this all to blow over, and the pub is Hong Kong. Second of all, just want to mention that, like, Hong Kong is actually on the, even though, like, there's a lot of countries like, hey, chill the heck out. Hong Kong is currently on the practice usual precautions. And you know what? My usual precautions involve not washing my hands after I use the bathroom. It involves blowing my nose onto passing animals, and involves getting a bit of bats. I'm not going to make these jokes. But yeah, and I'm going to Hong Kong. I'm going to be, like, extra cautious. Even if I don't need to, I'm going to do it anyway. And if you want to see what it's like in Hong Kong, ravaged by civil unrest last year, ravaged by now, the perception and the decrease in tourism, etc. It's going to be interesting. I hear it's a ghost town there. Looking forward to that. Let me know if you are too. Or let me know if you think that's the dumbest decision I've ever made. A lot of people are like, hey, Toycat, you gotta not do this. Again, fear and paranoia are good if they keep you inside your house, sure. But, like, you don't need to. You're fine. Like, don't, do precautions. They're good. They're important. But don't be fearful and paranoia and sharing that on the internet. Actually, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing that everyone gets so anxious. Maybe everyone being anxious is a thing that can lead to positive results in the long run. I don't know for sure. All I do know is that second channel, don't care. Goodbye.